Welcome to Columbia County Progress, the podcast where we listen, learn, and look ahead together. Each episode features thoughtful conversations with community members, local leaders, elected officials, and candidates about the real issues facing our county. From healthcare access to job creation, from school funding to the environment and more. Through curious, fair, and solutions-focused dialogue, we'll explore the challenges and opportunities shaping life in Columbia County and highlight practical ways to build a stronger, more vibrant future for everyone. Whether you're deeply involved in local politics or simply care about your community, Columbia County Progress is your place to stay informed and inspired. Tune in, join the conversation, help move Wisconsin forward. Today, we are doing a brief introduction to a series of 3 podcasts that are addressing the issue of 3 interrelated issues, really, of hyperscale data centers, involvement in local governance, and the environmental impact of these large developments, such as hyperscale data centers. And joining me, of course, is my esteemed colleague, Mark Stover, who is going to talk a little bit about what these podcasts entail.
Well, and thank you, Jim. And as you said, AI data centers have been in the news a lot lately, all across the state. There's multiple developments going on. These things are really interesting, and we wanted to learn more about what was going on with data centers across the state in order to help inform our listeners. So what we did was we talked to a number of people. As you said, we talked to folks from local community over here in DeForest that got together, organized to effectively address the issue and actually oppose the development of a data center in their community. We talked to a couple of folks from different environmental organizations in the state. The Sierra Club, of course, is a national organization, but they've got a division here in Wisconsin, too. Cassie Steiner from the Sierra Club helped us to understand a little bit more about the environmental impacts, not only from a water usage standpoint, but also from an energy generation standpoint, from land use standpoint, noise, all the different aspects of these hyperscale data centers.
Okay.
And we talked to Britnie Remer from 350 Wisconsin, an organization that's highly focused on climate change and the sort of downstream effects of these developments on impacts with respect to the climate.
Okay. You know, it's one thing that it's important for us to say is that we're not opposed to development. And what we want to do is to make sure that there are regulations in place and that the development that does occur is really fair to the local community and in the best interests of the local community.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I found particularly interesting as we talked to these folks. Because the scale of these data center developments is really unprecedented. I mean, we're talking about billion-dollar assets going in. We're talking about huge amounts of energy being used, as much as half the state's current usage, for instance, or as much as the state's currently using elsewhere. The water issues are real. As I mentioned earlier, the issues with respect to land and noise that Cassie talked a little bit about. And in particular, I think from a climate perspective is the issue that natural gas plants are needed to being developed in order to deliver that power more quickly. While renewables are a good thing, obviously, and could contribute to the energy use, it's just not enough, not fast enough from a standpoint of how it's getting to the grid.
Okay. So, Mark, who pays?
Well, these data centers, because of the size, actually sort of socialize the cost across a lot of the terrain. Obviously, people will pay more for their electric bills because there's a need to generate more electricity, which means building more power plants and that sort of thing. The tax incentives are particularly interesting, and Sean and Trish will go into more detail on that. But particular rules about how the taxes, a tax incremental district, for instance, is structured in a community have been waived, which means that a community might have more of its investment or its tax base in one entity. If that entity goes away, then they're up the cricks, as you say. And so there's also indirect costs to the infrastructure of the area around the facility, road construction, roads getting wrecked, dust in the air. We're seeing a lot of that stuff over in Port Washington now. So
Sure.
there are a lot of different kinds of costs to the community.
Now, you mentioned that these are unprecedented before,
Yeah.
and usually that means that development is getting ahead of regulation at the local level and at the state level, probably at the national level. So, what can people do? What's important for them to do right now?
Well, I think one of the most important things that we learned from Trish Bulke and Sean Haney from DeForest is you need to be actively listening and involved in what's going on in your community. You need to understand what the process is for adopting local regulations or adopting local zoning ordinances. How are referenda put together and passed in a community? They learned all about all that stuff, and that's fascinating to hear the tale of how that went together. So people need to focus on what's happening locally. These days, it's very difficult not to be distracted by all the things that are going on nationally and internationally. Oftentimes, things that affect people most are the things that are happening in their local community and their local governance structures.
Right. So, we want to encourage you to listen to the podcasts. Like we mentioned before, it's going to be a series of 3. And oh, by the way, there is also a column that we've put together for the hometown news group in Lodi, Poinet, and Wanakee that will be published at some point in the near future or past, depending upon when you view this podcast. So please check that out as well. But please do check out the podcast. You may even learn the proper pronunciation of the town of Vienna or Vienna, depending upon who you speak to.
It's a burning issue.
It's a burning. It absolutely.